Rain hammered against the hospital windows as chaos filled the emergency room. Nurses rushed around until the doors exploded open and 7 men in black suits stormed inside with a bleeding Korean man on a stretcher. Their leader pointed a gun at the staff and growled, "No one here would leave alive." Everyone froze except one woman. Nurse Aliyah stepped forward with a steady voice, telling them to move or he'd die for sure. Aliyah rushed him into surgery while the guards lined the walls like shadows. The bullet sat dangerously close to his heart, and every doctor hesitated to touch him. Aliyah refused to let fear control her as she took charge, blotting blood and instructing the team. When his heartbeat suddenly crashed, panic rippled through the room. But she stayed focused and performed a risky maneuver no one else dared. After seconds that felt like hours, the monitor beeped a weak but steady rhythm. The guards stared at her like she'd performed magic. One of them whispered that their boss didn't let anyone get this close, yet he let her save him. Aliyah didn't look up. She just stitched the wound and whispered to the unconscious man that he wasn't allowed to die tonight. When the surgery ended, she left the room unaware that her life had just collided with something far bigger than she imagined. By dawn, Aliyah walked home, exhausted, dragging her feet through puddles as the sky turned gray. But when she turned the corner to her street, her breath stopped. 7 identical black SUVs were parked in front of her building. The same Mafia men stepped out, forming a silent line. And in the middle of them stood the very man she saved, now dressed in a dark suit, pale but alive. Ji-sung looked at her without blinking, his gaze heavy with something unreadable. He told her that she saved his life, which meant her life was now tied to his, whether she liked it or not. Aliyah tried to walk past him, insisting her job was over. But Ji-sung stepped closer and quietly said that in his world, debts weren't ignored and lives weren't taken for granted. She realized then that this man didn't make requests, he made declarations. That night, Aliyah tried to forget the morning's strange encounter, but unease twisted inside her chest. The streets felt too quiet, and the shadows outside her window seemed to move. When she went to make tea, she heard footsteps outside her door. Before she could call anyone, the front window shattered from the impact of a brick, and masked men rushed toward her building. Aliyah hid in her closet, trembling as footsteps approached her hallway. Gunshots rang out, shouts followed, then silence. The closet door opened, and Aliyah screamed till she saw Ji-sung standing there, chest heaving, his shirt stained with someone else's blood. He told her calmly that rival gangs had learned she saved him and assumed she knew his secrets. She wasn't safe anymore, not alone, not anywhere. Whether she believed him or not, danger already found her. Ji-sung took her to his penthouse, the kind of place she'd only seen in expensive dramas. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble counters, and men stationed at every door. She felt trapped, angry, and overwhelmed, but Ji-sung insisted she wasn't his prisoner, she was under his protection. He spoke with the coldness of a man used to being obeyed, yet his eyes softened when she flinched at the memory of the attack. Days passed in a strange rhythm. Olia tried to keep her distance, but Ji-sung kept appearing at unexpected moments, asking what she liked to eat or if she had slept well. He never smiled, but something about his quiet presence unnerved her. One night, she found him standing alone on the balcony, gripping the railing as if holding back years of pain. When she asked what was wrong, he simply replied that everyone he ever cared about had been taken from him. Aliyah started to see him differently after that. Beneath the Mafia boss, there was a man who carried too many ghosts. But just when she began questioning her own heart, Ji-sung collapsed in front of her, clutching his chest. She rushed to help him, stabilizing him with the same calm she showed in the ER. When he opened his eyes again, his voice was rough as he whispered that she was the only person he trusted with his life. The next morning, Olia tried to leave the penthouse, telling him she needed space. Ji-sung stepped in front of the door, his expression unreadable. He told her that she walked into his life once, and he wouldn't allow her to walk out. She argued with him, but the fear in his eyes wasn't possessive, was protective. He didn't want to lose her, not to the men hunting her, and not to the world that took everything from him. She didn't answer. She stepped onto the balcony to breathe, watching the city lights flicker beneath her feet. As she exhaled, she didn't notice the red dots sliding up her chest. Ji-sung walked out behind her just in time to see it. His face twisted with terror as he yelled for her to get down, sprinting forward with a desperation she had never seen before. Olia dropped as a sniper's bullet shattered the glass behind her. Guards rushed in, alarms blared, and Ji-sung wrapped his arms around her, shielding her with his body. She trembled against him as he whispered that he was done playing defense. Whoever wanted her dead would not live long enough to try again. And in that moment, Aliyah finally understood this wasn't protection. This was war. And Ji-sung had already chosen his side. Aliyah sat silently in Ji-sung's penthouse as the city lights flickered beneath them. She tried convincing herself she didn't need him, but every sound outside of windows made her jump. The memory of masked men chasing her through her own home burned in her chest, reminding her that danger had already marked her name. She hated feeling weak, yet Ji-sung's presence made her feel strangely safe. Ji-sung watched her from across the room, leaning on his cane, refusing to show pain from his unhealed wound. He told her the attack wasn't random. The rival gang believed Aaliyah had overheard secrets during his surgery. Even though she denied it, he explained that facts didn't matter in his world. Only power and fear did. That's why they wanted her gone, and why he wasn't letting her out of his sight. The next morning, Aaliyah followed Ji-sung through the halls of his penthouse, while bodyguards bowed their heads in respect. She learned the truth. Ji-sung wasn't just any mafia figure. He was the head of one of the most feared syndicates in South Korea. He ruled through discipline, loyalty, and cold logic. But she noticed something new in him: fear of losing her. It lived behind his eyes like a shadow he couldn't hide. In the afternoon, Ji-sung took her to a secure training room and taught her how to defend herself. His hands were careful yet firm as he guided her wrists and elbows, showing her how to break a chokehold. She tried to pull away, annoyed by his controlling tone, but his voice softened as he told her he didn't want her depending solely on his men. He wanted her to survive, even when he wasn't there. Later, while Ji-sung discussed business with his lieutenants, Aaliyah overheard his men arguing about a traitor inside their ranks. Someone on the inside had leaked her identity and location. She froze as she realized the attack on her home wasn't coincidence, was betrayal. When Ji-sung came to check on her, she confronted him, asking who wanted her dead. He locked his jaw and simply said, "Someone close. Someone who regret it." That night, Aaliyah wandered onto the balcony and found Ji-sung drinking alone, staring at the city like it was a battlefield. She asked why her life mattered to him at all. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he whispered that when she touched his hand during the surgery, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: reason to stay alive. Aaliyah didn't know how to respond, but her heartbeat betrayed her. Hours later, screams echoed through the penthouse as alarms blared. Ji-sung rushed into the hallway, pulling Aaliyah behind him as guards dragged in a bleeding man, the traitor. The man spat blood and blamed Aaliyah, saying she was the reason the boss was losing focus. Ji-sung's expression turned cold as ice as he ordered everyone out of the room except her. Aaliyah saw him switch from wounded man to Mafia king. The traitor begged for mercy while confessing he had leaked Aaliyah's address to gain favor with the rival gang. Aaliyah watched Ji-sung grip the man's collar, rage shaking through him. But when the traitor accused Aaliyah of being a distraction, Ji-sung snapped and struck him, yelling that she was under his protection. The room fell silent as he turned toward her, chest heaving, eyes filled with something terrifyingly fierce. Aaliyah backed away, realizing that his anger wasn't just about betrayal, it was fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of facing another ghost in his life. When she reached out to calm him, he froze at her touch, as if feeling her hand again for the first time. He stepped closer, telling her softly that she didn't understand what she meant to him. Aaliyah felt her breath catch as he whispered, "You're the only person I don't want to lose." And in that moment, she realized why everyone else feared him. When Ji-sung cared about someone, he became unstoppable. The next morning arrived with tension hanging thick in the air. Ji-sung ordered extra guards and tightened security around the penthouse, refusing to let Aaliyah out of his sight. She argued that she needed to return to work, but he reminded her that her house was gone, her identity compromised, and the rival gang wouldn't stop until she was silenced. She hated that he was right, but the truth felt heavier than fear. Things got worse when Ji-sung's men intercepted a message. The rival gang had placed a bounty on Aaliyah. Ji-sung gathered his leaders and announced that the war wasn't just about power anymore, it was personal. Aaliyah overheard everything from the hallway, feeling guilt twist inside her. She never wanted to be the reason for bloodshed, but Ji-sung told her she wasn't the cause, she was the target, and he wouldn't let anyone touch her. As evening fell, Ji-sung took her to his private safe room, a hidden chamber lined with steel and surveillance screens. He showed her the city grid, explaining where the enemies were moving. For the first time, Aaliyah saw the full extent of his world, the danger, the loyalty, the violence, and the choices that shaped him. She finally asked him why he didn't just let her go hide somewhere far away. He looked at her like she asked the impossible. Ji-sung stepped closer and told her he didn't trust the world with her safety, that no matter where she ran, the gangs would follow the nurse who saved the Mafia boss. His voice cracked as he said he'd die before letting harm come to her. Aaliyah saw the truth in his eyes, the fear, the longing, the desire he tried so hard to bury. She reached up and touched his face, and for the first time. But the moment shattered when an explosion rocked the building. Alarms screamed as smoke filled the hall. Ji-sung grabbed her hand and pulled her into the stairwell while gunfire erupted outside. His men fought off attackers, but waves kept coming. Aaliyah clung to him as he shielded her with his body, guiding her through darkness. She could feel his heartbeat racing against her back, but his hand never left hers. They reached the rooftop where a helicopter waited, but a sniper's bullet grazed Ji-sung's arm, making him stumble. Aaliyah screamed his name and dropped to her knees, trying to drag him behind cover. Ji-sung gritted his teeth and pulled her close, telling her she was more important than his pain. The sniper aimed again, and all she heard was Ji-sung whisper, "Stay with me," as he wrapped himself around her. His men fired back, taking the sniper down, and dragged both of them into the helicopter. As the blades roared above them, Aaliyah held pressure to Ji-sung's wound, tears blurring her vision. Ji-sung cupped her cheek weakly and whispered that this was why he couldn't let her go. Because the moment she walked out of his life, someone would try to take her from him. As the helicopter lifted into the night sky, Olia realized something terrifyingly true. She wasn't just part of Ji-sung's world anymore. She was the weakness he'd kill to protect. And the reason the entire city was about to burn. The footsteps grew louder in the dark halls, echoing like a warning. Alia's heart raced as she pressed herself against the wall, clutching Ji-sung's hand. He whispered for her to stay calm, but even his voice trembled with rage. Someone had breached the compound's security, and it wasn't a stray threat. They came for her. Suddenly, gunfire erupted from the hallway. Ji-sung pushed Alia behind a steel pillar as bullets slammed into the walls. Guards scrambled, shouting orders, but the attackers moved with precision. Olia realized this wasn't just about the Mafia feud. Anymore, it was personal. Her life had become the center of a war she never asked for. Ji-sung sprang into action, taking out enemies with cold, calculated strikes. Every movement was controlled, yet lethal, and Alia could feel the pulse of his fear beneath the surface. He grabbed her clothes, dragging her through a hidden corridor while explosions shook the building. She felt herself trembling not from the chaos, but from the closeness of the man she had saved, now risking everything for her. They reached the rooftop just as a helicopter descended into view. Alia tried to catch her breath, but the moment was shattered when a sniper aimed at them from a neighboring building. Ji-sung threw himself over her, taking the shot to his shoulder. Blood seeped through his shirt, and he gritted his teeth to mask the pain. "Stay with me," he growled, pulling her into the helicopter. As the helicopter lifted off, Olia pressed her hands to his wound, terrified and shaken. Ji-sung's face softened briefly, and he whispered that she had no idea what she meant to him. Not just a nurse, not just a protector, but the one thing he couldn't survive without. Olia felt a strange warmth amid the chaos. She was the anchor in his world of violence. When the helicopter reached safety, Ji-sung slumped against her, exhausted but alive. She realized then that this wasn't just protection, it was a declaration. He couldn't let her go, and she couldn't imagine leaving him. Outside, the city lay in shadows, but for the first time, they both felt a fragile spark of hope born in the middle of fire, danger, and chaos. The sun began to rise, casting pale light over the hidden compound. Alia sat beside Ji-sung as medics patched his wounds. He looked at her, his normally cold eyes softening, revealing a vulnerability no one had ever seen. For the first time, he spoke without control, without orders, just truth. "You stayed," he said quietly, his hand brushing her hair back. "Even when I told you to leave, you stayed." Olia swallowed hard, realizing how much she had depended on him too. Her life had become intertwined with his in ways she hadn't imagined. Fear, anger, attraction, they all twisted together in a way that made her chest ache. Outside, alarms still echoed faintly, but the danger had paused for now. Ji-sung stepped closer, his hands firm on her shoulders, holding her steady. "I can't promise you safety from the world," he murmured, "but I can promise you won't face it alone." Aaliyah felt her heart skip. In that moment, she knew this wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about trust. Suddenly, a message appeared on Ji-sung's secure phone. Another threat, another warning. The rival gang had regrouped and was plotting something bigger. He looked at her, eyes darkening, and said, "They want you, but they won't have you. Not while I'm alive." Aaliyah felt a mix of terror and comfort. Danger was still real, but so was him. Ji-sung pulled her close, whispering against her ear, "Stay with me tonight. Tomorrow we fight together." She nodded, her fingers clutching his shirt. The helicopter waited silently, ready to take them anywhere safe. She realized then that whatever came next, she would face it with him manned. That scared her more than the bullets ever could. As they stood together on the balcony, the city sprawling below, Ji-sung held her hand tightly. In the shadows, enemies watched, waiting for a mistake. But Aaliyah no longer felt helpless. She had survived death, chaos, and betrayal, and now she had someone who would fight for her with everything. The camera would fade out on them, standing side by side, tense, aware of the war still coming, but unbroken. Two people, one bond, a world against them. And in the distance, the first shot of the next battle echoed a warning that this story was far from over.